Hello, good people. Good Friday. Happy Friday. We're back with another exciting episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. Really excited today. Have a special guest, Herb Barr. Let me just do the announcements before we get into talking with Herb. Always have to go through the bio. So first of all, today it's another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. We're dedicated to expanding the knowledge base of development teams in the financial services industry while celebrating and highlighting disruptive FinTech businesses and exploring the full spectrum utilized within the industry. So today's guest, Herb Barr. Herb is an investor data solutions architect with over 20 years of experience in architecting solutions for billion-dollar asset management firms. Herb specializes in structuring investor data and partners with investor relations teams during their most ambitious capital raises. On the weekends, you can find Herb at Hacking Sack Brewing Company, which he co-owns with friends. Welcome to the show, Herb, once again. How are you today?
I was hoping for like a drum roll or a round of applause there.
Well, they could be clapping for you in the comment section, right? It's virtual claps. I mean, we're being viewed on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. So they could be clapping for you live, or maybe next year when someone rewatches this video, they'll be clapping also. But happy Friday, guys. As you're aware, so today's topic that we are going to be diving into is technology negatively impacting your private equity capital raise? So that's the topic we're going to dive into during the show. As you know, if you're familiar with this show, we go through some news articles relating to fintech financial services that we found during the week that we found interesting. Obviously, we're not going to go through the full gambit of the news, just those topics. I'm going to get Herb's opinion on it. And then afterwards, we're going to dive into the topic of the day, which is technology negatively impacting your PE capital raise. So what's on the agenda first? Coinbase went public this week. Those of you who do not know what Coinbase is a cryptocurrency exchange where you can buy your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, and altcoins and all sorts of stuff. So they just hit their IPO and went public today. The shares opened, I think it went as high as like 350, then they dropped to 320. I think now they're trading at around, let me check it, 337. With them going their IPO, the coins rallied around that, and we saw Bitcoin hitting an all-time high of 64,841. Ethereum hit as high as 2,500. Herb, what are your opinions on that?
I like Coinbase, right? I like the idea, but I thought a lot about it. But it's interesting that as their numbers went up, Tesla went down. Other players that were Bitcoin heavy seem to lose money. So it just seems like
interesting.
Took money out of one pocket and put it in another. I like it. I think it's huge, right? The size of Coinbase is bigger than the entire NASDAQ.
Yes, correct.
That might be a little crazy in itself to think
about. That's crazy in itself.
You know.
So, no, I mean, we've been talking about these types of things for the last few months. Obviously, we're definitely fans of blockchain on this end, and we are always watching what's going on in that space. Another news on that I found interesting now: the New York Stock Exchange are in the NFT business. So the NYSE First Trade NFT memorializes that unique moment in the company's history. It's called Our First in Class of NYSE NFT celebrates first trades of these notable listings. Right now, they started with Spotify, Snowflake, Unity, DoorDash, Roblox, and Coupang. And while we are starting with these 6, we know there'll be many more NYSE NFTs to come as we continue to welcome new innovative companies to our community. I find that very interesting. Everyone's hopping on the NFT space and now NYSE. So What are your thoughts around that?
I want to find out how to get involved. It's a bit much for me right now. Just the
So for
understanding
that,
is too much.
so that means you don't watch our shows because
No,
a few weeks ago we had a
I
guest
watched.
on, and
I was.
NFT was the topic du jour, and we dove into it.
I was. I
GOT,
was.
she's our
I
blockchain
was. I
expert.
was in tune. I was in tune and learned a lot about blockchain that day. I don't know where my position is going to come in because it's a lot for my brain to comprehend, to figure out how I'm going to get into the NFT space.
No, it's definitely interesting things going there. But I mean, but seriously, if you're interested, I think it's OpenSea. That's a resource, and right now you could actually just create one. Anyone could create one. Not saying that's going to be worth anything, but just to like test it out. I know that's something that from a company perspective, be working with a musician friend of mine just to experiment with and help him out, but just to get an idea of the process.
Yeah.
So it's definitely
something that I found interesting in that space was I believe it was called the metasphere or the metaverse, where people
yeah.
were, I guess, virtual real estate and putting up billboards and ads on the sides of virtual property and owning that property. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's a whole other virtual world where, and I think the art piece that was purchased for 70 million, the owner of that, he's big into that world, and he's actually going to have a display, like an art gallery in the virtual world.
Right, a virtual art gallery. That's next
Yeah,
level.
not totally. It's interesting where things are unfolding and how it's going to come about. Like I said, I'm here for it. I'm all about that ride. I want to learn more about it, dive into the technology aspect of it, and just see where we could add value, basically. So I'm excited for it. So I think that's the news topics of the day that we wanted to get into. And now we can jump into our question and topic of the day. Is technology negatively impacting your PE capital raise? What does that mean to you, Herb?
Wow, I love it. Um, it's a lot to say that question,
Yeah.
um, but to me, it touches on the build versus buy mentality that floats around technology. I guess every
Okay.
few years, and people flip flop which they value more. Um, but I think when you have an open checkbook for technology, it could be a negative, right? When you think about all the different software systems, PE firms may use in their investor relations department, it can get cumbersome. So you have your sales guys or your marketing guys using their pipelining tools, as well as some sort of CRM system. But then once their clients are onboarded, they're now in some sort of accounting system. They're using Preqin to enrich data, FactSet to enrich data. I think having all these disparate systems can slow you down when you're actually out there prospecting.
And so I want to definitely jump into that. We have a comment from a mutual friend. We both know Ryan Folks, my guy. Virtual real estate is so interesting. You know what? We could have a whole other show on that. We definitely find that interesting. I think we might have to touch on that because I have some ideas offline. Yeah, so let's dive into that. I mean, the one thing to understand, and let's put it out there. I mean, obviously, people in the PE space know that, right? When you're raising, doing a capital raise, it's a sales job, in essentially, right? You're calling investors, you're working with institutions, and you're trying to fund this. And like all sales jobs, getting that prospect data as quick as possible, as clear as possible, to help you then follow through with your pipeline is of utmost importance. So now when we have these disparate systems previously, how have you seen that impact their end goals from a capital raise perspective?
One of the questions that I've heard for 15 to 20 years is, who do I call? Something
Mm,
is general, and it seems like that should be the easiest question to answer. Who do I call? I've seen some of the smartest guys spend a lot of time just trying to figure out who the human is on the other end of the phone that they need to get in contact with, because they're tracking institutions, but they don't know who within that firm is the point person about the specific product they're trying to pitch. Or, I want to reach out to existing investors, right? If you gave me money once, it's highly likely you may give it to me a second time if I manage your money correctly. But now, as a salesperson, I need a view into the accounts you own, and what kind of products are in those accounts. And usually that's held in different systems, right? Your CRM system is really just your contacts and when did you last speak to them, and maybe if you're lucky, what you spoke to them about. But if you want to know the size of their accounts, that's usually coming from a different system. And if you don't have tight integration or some sort of API work or a data warehouse that's collecting and flattening all this information, that's kind of hard when you're under a time crunch of, I got to raise a few $1 billion by the end of the week or the end of the month.
It's interesting. So not necessarily private equity, but I know Ryan has a tremendous sales experience. He's like, yes, like the simple, I want to touch on that, right? Like the simple question of who do I call? Obviously, we're focused right now on fintechs. We talk a lot more about the financial side. Today's about private equity. But I mean, I think this problem is ubiquitous. I mean, it can span all sorts of sales roles. And that question that you just posed, I mean, even for someone like me, like I reach out to clients, I reach out to prospects. Who do I call? Like that. I love that question.
We and not to stray from the financial side of it, but in my other life, we put out cold calls to vendors to sell beer, right? I mean, that's outside of finance, but you're doing the same thing. Someone says call ShopRite. Well, which ShopRite do I call? And then once I call ShopRite, who do I ask for? And then what did I talk to them last about? They already said no to me about one product. All that information that you're capturing and storing in your CRM system or your notes database or whatever you want to call it is valuable when you're prospecting and when you're raising capital or selling a product. I think what's happening in the technology world and especially the PE space, they have money, right? So the new hot software or the software with the most active sales guy becomes what they buy, right? And then they come back to your IT department and say, now integrate this with what I already have. If you have the money for it and you have the IT team, that's great. But a lot of times you're actually buying yourself into a corner, right? You've purchased all these products. Now you have to go find someone to integrate them if they have that ability, or build out a team of people that have knowledge in all these different platforms, and then hire an integrator. So, I mean, with the initial spend of buy the new hot product, you now have to build a team around those products. And I think that might slow down your sales cycle.
I mean, it's important to also note, right? Like when we talk about the PE space, they have that management fee, and that's about 2%. So depending on what they have under management, if it's 2% of that, that's what is dedicated to basically running their operations, from everything from the business side, staff payments, and everything. So even now, the resources to go out when you have this disparate system and build that expertise around each one seems costly and somewhat inefficient.
Don't quote my numbers, but I'm pretty sure the second biggest spend after employees is technology.
I know one of the things we've been experimenting with, sometimes I have to take my hat off as a host and put my hat back on as the consultant, right, is basically connecting to these different systems, extracting the data via the API, putting it in some sort of data warehouse, and then placing that from a visual perspective on a reporting side. So at least they can kind of get a gauge of things and also mix it with disparate system and maybe some market data so they can be kind of clear on that. And it sounds like from what you're saying, integration, like if you are in the pathway already, right? Like when you have all these systems, but you need information from that so you can be more effective during your capital raise calls. You can be more effective, when you are talking to a prospect, right? You don't want to misquote and say and talk to someone like you've never, not maybe you personally didn't do business with them, but another person, a pre-existing employee, someone else did. And now not having that information at hand when you're speaking could be totally catastrophic.
Yeah, I mean, an example would be you work in a firm that's acquired another firm. So now chances are, at least for a short period of time, you have two accounting systems, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a decent sized firms with overlapping strategies, some of your clients are going to be the same. If you can imagine picking up the phone and talking to, I don't know, a Texas teacher. So a Texas teacher is a firm that's that big, an endowment that's that big. Can you imagine talking to them and say, yes, we're managing $1 billion of your dollars, or in actuality, you're managing $2 billion because of an acquisition? And now the person on the other end of the phone has to be confident that you didn't lose $1 billion of their money because you misspoke, because you read a report wrong. Like those integrations are important. If you're a sales guy, a marketing guy, I think you need to be one of the smartest people in the firm, right? You're the one on the front line. Your client relations people, they need every bit of information at their fingertips as soon as they talk to a client. When they walk into a room, I mean, for me, best case scenario is you have a white paper with a person's picture, every single account they're linked to, every firm that they've worked for in the last 5 years, and some printout. That's a perfect world, but that's feeding in from 5 or 6 different systems.
Or maybe it's on an iPad and you have all that information digitally laid out. But you're right, like having that information and then being able to smoothly like talk to it, right? When you're not reading the guy's life story, but you're just, you're adding it in the conversation. That sounds extremely valuable.
Yeah.
How many times in your history have you seen that in action?
Actually, or
yes, actually work like that.
It's in that nirvana, that perfect world of having everything at your fingertips. In 20 years, I've never seen it happen.
Wow.
I've seen people get really close. I've seen people with really good information. And I've seen some really tight integrations where, you can pull up a contact and see every firm they've worked for and those firms' allocations to different products, which is great because now if you meet that person as a salesperson, you know what their firm's interested in and what their investment capabilities are. That's rare, but once you see that, I haven't seen people then further delve into these are all the accounts that they're holding, or this human has control. They're a controlling person over all these accounts. So maybe this is a guy I really want to talk to because they have influence inside the space versus, being a true allocator.
So now when we start connected to like the external system, so if we're talking from institutional side, you can now start seeing on that same lens, you can also start seeing their allocations. So how much of a portion of their investment strategy they have to invest to real estate or invest in X or Y, and with the vision that you just pointed out and seeing all that and now talking to that, I think that's even more powerful.
Yeah, I mean, and not to just dive right into a very specific and like really talk about the benefits to the sales people only, but absolutely, just to know what my potential is when I speak to this person is huge. To know what kind of dollars I'm managing for this person, invaluable. But then when you talk about all those great tools that are out there, your Prequins, your fact sets, all those other systems that you can use to enrich that information.
Exactly.
You can't put a value on having that one quick snapshot around a firm, around a person, around an account. You're really only going to get that with integrations. I don't think you're going to get that by just going out and purchasing all these products. Because what you're adding to it is now me as a internal research person, I have to go through 5 or 6 systems, dump that information out, put it in Excel, do VLOOKUPs, if names match. Then I have to do some sort of lookup tables and maintain that and manage that IBM is really the same as international business machines. It becomes a management nightmare if you don't think about it in advance.
I mean, as you start going through, especially when you start trying to flatten your data and then normalize it, because someone may say United States, someone may say USA. It's like then you're pulling all that information in, and then you have to now have like references and to each system, right? So because you're essentially pulling it in, you want to manage it basically as one data layout, data view.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's something that, I mean, you and I have talked about in other projects or talking about other topics. It's not even as simple as saying you're going to have a master system. You have a master system for each data point, right? Where you're internally, I want to trust that my sales team knows the nicknames of the people they speak to all the time, right? So Herbert versus Herb. There are certain people that are really adamant about their name or their use of nickname. Your larger data providers, they're not going to have that information. They're going to have what's publicly filed, and that's it. So if you can imagine, you got a guy named George, but he wants to be called Jed for whatever reason. You're managing this guy's money. He's giving you billions of dollars through relationships. You call him George, he may take offense to it. He should say, I've done this much work for you. Recognize that my name is Jed.
Or immediately he's going to know that I don't really do business with you often. Like it's just that the wall comes up.
Right. Other things I've seen, and this is
Herb, you still there? Your camera just went out on us.
I don't know if I've got sound, but
you have sound. I hear you clearly. Let me remove you, then add you back. Nope, camera is still out. This is like the beauty of life, folks. Sometimes we roll with it, and we have some technical stuff that we will jump back in. But we have Herb by audio, so that is definitely great. While he I'll just let him fix that situation real quick.
We can continue a little bit. I see what I can do on my end if that's it. But
please let's continue to roll with it. It's pretty strange. You were kind of clear before. Yeah, let me just take you offline for a second. Just take you offline while you do that. Bear with me, folks. I'm gonna just kind of resolve that technical issue, and then we will get back to our interview here. So in the meantime, give me a second. Let me just let's roll with that. I'm watching Herb's in the waiting room to just see when he completes that. I think he's working on something. All right, but it's all interesting stuff what Herb is saying regarding private equity in terms of looking at the capital raises and how it relates. Not only it's just more of a sales function throughout, and I think the idea is how do we now take all the data from disparate systems and then make one integrated view? Like I said, when I was talking to her, we saw success in basically putting everything in a data warehouse, and then from there, figuring out ways to visualize that to get it to whether it's on a sales team side or even on an investor relations side. So we could definitely talk through that. Some interesting stat that I actually saw that I wanted to bring up that I found very interesting, and I think this was really at 2019. That's the last stat that I got. That during that year, 900 billion was raised in the industry, and 6.5 trillion was under management. So that just shows you the size of private equity. That was 2 years ago, so we can make some assumptions that AUM probably increased. I know 2020 obviously was a bit of a rough year. Other stuff while Herb figures that out. See if give me a second. It's always fun with live because you never know what's going to happen. That's the exciting part of it, right? Anything can, like, someone can comment, interesting comments, and so forth, and then obviously we just got to roll through the technical difficulty situation. See, let me add Herb back on and see if we could just get audio. Herb, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So you know what? Let's just roll. Let's roll with it. Yeah, I was giving some interesting stats around the PE industry, and I was like, in 2019, the total assets under management was 6.5 trillion. So I find that stat very interesting.
I was able to hear you the entire time, but with that, you touched on something that's like right up this wheelhouse, or that's something that's directly in that. So with that number, that's a very generic number, right?
Yeah.
So that number is broken down into different industries, different sectors. That information is available in products like MMD or Preqin, and you'll know what these allocators have the ability to put money into. So say you're looking at somebody like CalSTRS, right? So a big allocator, they have a lot of money that they have to put to work. And you're raising a real estate fund, and you've figured out who to talk to. So now you're starting to build that web of information. But if you find out they're not investing in real estate, and you find out the guy to call, and you pick up the phone and say, I want to pitch a real estate fund, immediately he knows you didn't do any sort of homework, and you're getting a click. So now you have another guy on your same sales team pick up the phone 2 weeks later, call the same guy and pitch real estate. To me, that's a problem. You look very
excessive. It's a huge problem,
right? So now you've annoyed a person that's in control of billions of dollars, just because your web of information is not connected. You have the same tools as the guy with the firm down the block, but they have better integrations. But the fact that you haven't had that API work, you haven't had that data warehouse built out, you don't have that information tied together. You just have a call list. But I think when you want to make that intelligent, you have to say, I need to buy a product or build a product that can aggregate all this information. Or as you're buying these things, keep in the back of your mind, aggregation has to happen, and integration is the only way to do it.
I mean, and I think, and what's good about what you just said is because sometimes when you're looking at the requirements in terms of buying the system, right? That can actually be one of them. And these are the questions that you need to ask, like, how do you integrate with other systems? How easy is it for me to extract certain data within your API? What are your API threshold limits, if any? So is it that I can extract some stuff, but then I hit a threshold, it starts throttling, it stops me? Or is your system prepared for that? And how also, of course, because, we also talk about security, how secure is your API? I'm going to be accessing tons of PII from my investors, right? I cannot have that being compromised. So what you just said now kind of touches on, I think, are, more due diligence questions from the PE firm getting this software to ask their vendors before onboarding them.
I mean, it's both sides. So you need to make sure that security is there, right? You're buying all these systems. They're going to have different levels of security. They may not have intended to hold certain types of information. So some CRM systems, they don't have the level of security as maybe an accounting system, which is designed to hold wire instructions and bank account information and social security numbers. But once you start integrating those things, you need to think about it. Well, now is my CRM a spot that I need to be a little bit more concerned about, because now I'm seeking sensitive information inside my CRM system, and now that needs to be scrutinized a little bit more. But those are all questions I think your internal teams need to think about. But then before you purchase these new platforms, someone should be challenging the guy with the purse and ask them, well, why? Why are you buying it? That's a difficult question sometimes to ask, the person 1 or 2 levels up. But I think that's a conversation that really needs to be had and understood before I go out and I spend this money. I buy this new platform, and now I've introduced not just risk, I've introduced more man hours to your research cycle and your pipelining ability.
No, I mean, I think all those are like valid points. Let me we're definitely at our 12:30 mark, but one thing I like to do is like, let's touch on like solutions. Let's say that it's a smaller private equity firm. They have a 2% management. The budget around operations is not as expansive as like the bigger guys like the KKRs or the lease departments and all these people. Like, what are some of your suggestions for that?
Depending on your size, right? And something that people don't do a lot before they buy. Look at what you have. Look at what you have before you buy something robust. And then if you're going to do it, and if you decide what we have is not enough, before you start buying all these band-aids, look at possibly a larger platform. Yes, you may spend more money one time, but hopefully that larger spend, you can reduce or retire all these other platforms you have. There are systems out there, and I don't know who's paying you, so I won't drop too many names, but there are your larger systems that are really data aggregators, where they pull in a secure way information from 3, 4, 5 other systems into a centralized area. So now you didn't go out, you didn't build a data warehouse and spend 5, 6 years to get a project done. You can buy something off the shelf that can securely pull in this data, manage the usernames and passwords, and now you have a centralized area that you can build your reports from there. I mean, there are some players in the game. I would say there's probably 2 or 3 right off the top of my head that I can think of right now. And some of them are smart enough that once they pull in data, they can actually send alerts to different people in your firm or trigger other workflows. I think that's where you want to be.
No, I mean, I think that's a good suggestion. Move forward. Let me ask you another question now. In closing, if people wanted to contact you or talk more about this, what are the best ways to contact you?
I'm connected to these guys at Strategic Generations. They seem to keep me honest and keep me focused.
I love it. I love it.
That's a good way to contact me. But other than that, I'm on LinkedIn. I think all my information is out there via this invite, and I'm always open to talk about it. Somebody needs some side projects, I can work on them in between selling beer.
I love it. Speaking of selling beer, we always got to big up Hackensack Brewing Company. So I saw the governor in the state that I live in with one of your Hackensack Brewing beer. That was an interesting shot. Can you talk more about that?
The world is shrinking. And without saying too much, when the governor of your state requests your beer, you make sure it's delivered to his house within an hour.
Congratulations on that. That's a huge deal, by the way.
Yeah.
I was like, at first I was like, wait, is he drinking beer? That's interesting. Then I was like, oh, whoa, he's drinking Herb's beer. Yeah. It's a whole different spin.
I can't speak to the governor's consumption of alcohol. I can say that he held the beer in his hand and it may have been opened.
Nah, man, it's amazing. Like I saw you when you first closed on the space to where it's at now. You grew it. Definitely, congratulations. If I had a hat, I would take it off. But hats off to you, brother.
Thank you.
Somebody AAA on YouTube says, "Oh, the Doge coin is going crazy." I don't follow Doge that often. But yeah, so listen, man, thank you very much for being a guest as always. Appreciate your insight. Appreciate, you being a guest. This is her second time on. Always good times when you are here. And when your camera's working, it's even better times. But I'm going to leave that one alone. Yeah. So to everyone, have a happy Friday and a good weekend. Somebody said instead of hats off to him, headphone. You know what? Headphones off. Headphones off to headphones off. I love that. I love that. The YouTube comment said not hats off, but headphones off. Okay, that might be a new thing. I might have to take my headphones off to people. I love it. I love it. So but yeah, so I know where you're going to be tonight and this weekend. It's a brewery or a spot that I heard about in Hackensack. I think you're going to be there. I assume.
I will be there.
That's what's up.
Be there.
That's what's up, man. So to everyone tuned in, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for your comments. We always appreciate it. Every week at 12 p.m. EST, we go live on the Tech Behind FinTech. Please subscribe to, if you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you're on LinkedIn, follow. We're on Facebook, like. If you're on Twitch, do whatever people on Twitch do. And thank you very much for tuning in. Looking forward to further amazing guests and amazing topics. See you all next week at 12 p.m.